It's a very warm welcome indeed to the Global Sports Channel today to Unlimited Zola. Zola, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Where did the unlimited come from? I saw it on your Twitter account and I thought that must be something of the mindset of yours, is it?
No, actually, it was a company that sponsored me when I ran my first Comrades Marathon. So, yeah,
Ah,
so that's where the unlimited came from.
that's
Yes.
where the unlimited came from. So, how are you today? We were just talking off air that it's a little bit cold where you are right now. Whereabouts in the world are you today?
I'm in South Carolina, USA, so it's there's a cold front coming through, so it's a little bit chilly, but luckily no snow.
It's a beautiful part of the world, though, isn't it?
It is. It's really beautiful. It's we live in a rural area, so it's really nice.
Now, what I do for all my guests on the show is I give you the opportunity to dedicate the show to someone special in your life. So, who would you like to dedicate your show to today?
I think my brother, yes, I'd like to dedicate brother Quintus.
That's a great dedication, and there's a story behind that. We might get into that a little bit later on, but a lovely dedication to your brother. Now, you were born in the city of Roses in beautiful Bloemfontein in South Africa, correct?
Yes, I was born there. Yeah. Bloemfontein, it's a small town in the middle of South Africa.
Now, I've had the pleasure of going there, and the last time I was there was in 2009. I was just telling you off air that I'm a very proud New Zealander, and I was sitting in the Free State Stadium watching the All Blacks play South Africa. And
Yes, yeah.
it was the wrong year to be in South Africa watching the All Blacks because we got beaten.
I must say, just to come up for the All Blacks, then playing in Bloemfontein is probably one of the hardest places to play because of the altitude and they don't have winter grass. So most of the time, I'm not sure now, but in the past, it used to be just like dry grass in the winter. So yeah, and the altitude doesn't make it easier either. It's probably one of the worst places to play.
Thank you for making excuses for my team. I wasn't going to do that. Now, Bloemfontein's if I remember right, it's the judicial capital of South Africa. Is that right?
Yes, yes, the Courts of Appeal is in Bloemfontein.
Okay, and in the Sesotho language, I think it says the place of the cheetahs,
Yeah, Mangaung, place of
Mongolung.
the big cat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So it's quite apt that you're from a place like that. You used to run as fast as cheetahs, didn't
Not quite, no.
you? So tell us about growing up there and starting off in running. How did running come into your life?
I think at school level, we had to do a sport at primary level. You had to do a summer sport and a winter sport. And I was just horrible at everything else. I couldn't play tennis. I couldn't, I swim like a rock and I couldn't play netball. So running obviously was the thing to do. And that's how I started in running because that was the only thing that I could do.
So you were pretty young when you first started off then.
At primary school level, it was just fun, just running at local school level, and that's it. I never really excelled and went to another level. It's only when I moved to another high school in grade nine that I started training with the coach at the school. And suddenly, I just started running really, really well.
Mm. What was the inspiration then when you got to high school? Was it again that you kind of just loved running? You wanted to do it more competitively, or was there a role model or somebody that came along?
I think it's a way of escape because unfortunately my sister passed away in that year, and for me it was because she was like my mom. She's 11 years older than me, and she was more or less a person who guided me through life, and I saw her as my mom. So she passed away that year, and for me that was terrible. And the only thing I had was running, and I just disappeared in running. And because if you train, you don't have to talk to people, and you don't have to socialize. You don't have to. You could literally withdraw in your own little world. And running was really good for me. Yeah,
Mm.
it was really good.
A lot of people say it's a very lonely sport, but it's also a very meditative sport, isn't it? In terms of allowing you to go into that kind of meditative zone when you're running. Did you experience that at a young age?
Oh yes, yes. Running was my escape. It was the only place I felt safe. And even now, when I'm running, it's the only place where I feel completely physically, emotionally, psychologically, I feel one. Out of when I'm not, and I need that. It's almost like a form of meditation, I think.
Mm.
Um,
So you never considered any team sport? There was nothing on your radars for far as doing team sport at any stage?
the only team sport available included balls, and I have no ball sense.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you're known across the world, of course, as the barefoot runner. So tell us how that came into your life. When did you first start experimenting with barefoot running, and did you actually get that from somebody else, or is it something you just tried?
I think it's just the way we grew up in South Africa because we went barefoot everywhere. Even now, you can go to the mall or barefoot, and nobody will bat an eye. And my kids, when they were in school, they could go to school barefoot during the summer. So it's just the way we grew up, and nobody else in my training group had shoes.
Mm.
So we just started running barefoot. It was only after a year of training when we started to do some more road work that my coach said, "I think you need shoes now." So my mom went out and got me a pair of shoes. So yeah.
That's an interesting phenomenon. What was the difference that you felt going from barefoot to wearing shoes all of a sudden? Was there a huge difference? Did you feel very uncomfortable?
Yeah, even now, I just prefer going barefoot all the time. I'll walk barefoot everywhere at home. And America is not that open to people going barefoot, but in South Africa, it's lovely to be home and then just go barefoot everywhere. Yeah, and I still try and run barefoot a lot. It's just the freedom you feel and the proprioception you have and your your presence in time and space. It's different from shoes. You don't have that same proprioception when you run with shoes.
Yeah. And what about the hardening of your feet? So did it take long for your feet to adapt to running? Because obviously it's different running than it is to walking barefoot. So did your feet take a long time to adapt to the pounding of running?
Not really, because I never ran barefoot on the road. So I always only ran barefoot on the track or on the grass. So on the track, my toes would always get blisters. So I just taped them. But it's more your foot muscles. So if you don't run barefoot for a long time, you suddenly start running barefoot, you can injure yourself. So you have to be really patient. And even me running barefoot for so many years, even now I have to be patient and just slowly get back into it if I haven't been running barefoot for a long time. So it's more your foot muscles that you need to make strong than really toughen it up. So my feet look more or less the same than everybody else's underneath. But it's just the foot muscles. If they collapse, then you're in trouble.
Did you have any fears throughout your career that you could get a really bad injury from running barefoot and it could, finish your career? Was that ever a concern?
No, it was never a concern because if you're running barefoot, you're so much more aware of your environment and who's around you and your proprioception and everything. So you more or less always keep yourself out of trouble. And I remember running in really close track races where I got spiked underneath my feet, and afterwards I just see these spike marks underneath my feet. So running with spikes or without spikes, I mean the spikes today and even then is so thin, you're going to get spiked anyway. So.
Hmm. Okay. Look, I wanted to be hopefully the first interviewer that you've ever had that never talks about the 1984 Olympics. So I'm not going to bring that up.
Okay.
I'm not going to bring that up today unless you want to. So I just wanted to set my
No, I
position on that
prefer not
for
to.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm really interested because what we try and do on the show is we're trying to inspire and motivate people all across the world to get into sport and to find a passion and to get off the couch and go and get themselves healthy and all the rest of it. So talking to people like you who have really reached the pinnacle of world sport, it's a great opportunity for us to do that. So I'd like to go back to your high school days when you started running and you were getting a bit more serious about it. When did the dream come along that you wanted to kind of, get to the Olympics and all that sort of stuff? Or did you set out with that dream in the first place?
No, I never had any dreams of winning national championships or Olympic Games or world records or anything like that. I just got involved in the process of running and running every day. I needed to do that because I was so angry at the world, and that's the only place where I could really express my anger. and my aggression. And so no, I didn't have any preconceived ideas like that. It was only later when after I ran that fast 5K that people suddenly realized, oh, but you can go to the Olympics, and then sort of got forced on you. But initially, I didn't have any. I just ran just because of the way it made me feel.
Were you somewhat reluctant then in those regards, in terms of that pressure you were feeling from others to go on and do greater things in the world of athletics?
I think that going to Britain, definitely I was pressured. A lot of pressure by my dad, Daily Mail, and mostly my dad because he wanted me to go. So and of course I had this idea of the Olympic Games of it's something amazing, and running internationally is just the ultimate and the pinnacle of an athlete's existence. So yes, me myself, I thought, oh, it'd be good, but after spending a few weeks in England, I realized this is the wrong place for me.
Interesting. Now, you were raised in South Africa in a very pivotal time of South African history as a country, and that also impacted your career from different levels. Can you talk to us about that and how you felt about some of those things?
By the time when I was racing in South Africa, they were still during the height of apartheid because I matriculated in 1983. So that was during the height of apartheid then. And when I moved to Britain in 84, I was seen as a representative of the white Afrikaans racist government. So I got a lot of flack for coming from South Africa and endorsing that system. I was seen as their personal representative.
So you moved to the UK, and as you say, quite somewhat reluctantly because of the pressure that was coming from your father. How was that transition in terms of getting used to? I guess there would have been new training conditions, new coaches, the media onslaught that you probably hadn't had to that degree before. How was all that to cope with? How did you cope with that?
It was really tough because back home in South Africa, I always had my home life to fall back on. So my home life was very different from my running life. So if I had a bad day at running, I could go home and I'd have all my animals and I had my school and my friends. And so it was very, in a way, more balanced. But as soon as I went to Britain, everything was just about running. And then you'd have the press camp out on your doorstep, and you have all these interviews you have to do, and then the demonstrations at races, and they weren't always very friendly or flattering. They would swear at you and spit at you, and so it sometimes I got a bit scared of that because of in the one cross country race I was actually run off the course. Um, so yeah, it for me it's like day and night. It was very different, and suddenly for the first time I felt that I'm not in control of my running anymore. It was taken away from me.
I was going to ask about that because a lot of athletes talk about, being in the zone when they're in competition and how vital it is to be in the right headspace, not only during the competition, but leading up to it and preparation and all the rest of it. So you must have been under extraordinary pressure with those external factors impacting you. Did it impact your performance on the track at the time?
Yes, definitely it did. Because I had to warm up separately sometimes, and the police had to be there, and then escorted on the track, and people would be booing, and yeah, it was a tough for me just to get on the track was already just exhausting. So it was very emotionally, it was very tough, and mentally as well. So I never had a fair chance to really compete the way I would have wanted to. Definitely not.
So you mentioned before that people actually spat on you.
Yeah, the demonstrators they used to do that. Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Like how did you respond to that?
I don't really respond overtly, so I just take everything inside and you just keep quiet and carry on. That's more or less what I did. What else what could I do? There was nothing else I could have done.
Did you ever think of quitting at that time?
Every day, yes. Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
So what stopped you? What stopped you from packing it in at that stage?
I think the main reason was I had nowhere else to go because my mom and dad had split up and there wasn't a home anymore that I could go back to when we left South Africa. So I was more or less on my own in a way. And I was in this situation and this is the way I was so there was no backup plan. There was no plan B for me.
Quite
That's how I
often,
felt.
yeah, quite often the case we hear that story from athletes that have, made it to the top like you have, in terms of that lonely journey, sometimes alone, where they haven't been having those support networks in place. Did you make friends in the UK easily? Did you have some people around you after some time in the UK?
Not really. Mostly John Bryan from the Daily Mail became a good friend, and my mom came over. She came over a few times, but mostly it was my coach and his wife. Yes.
Okay. And what about competitions? What were some of the first more memorable competitions that you can remember that you participated in after you were based in the UK?
I think the first race was at Dartford, and I remember I couldn't even do strides because there were so many press and stuff. And I had to run a qualifying race to qualify for the Olympic trials, and I had to run in spikes because it was a dirt track. And apparently, after my race, they got an all-weather track because of the news worthiness of the track or something. But I just remember the press was just overwhelming, and it was just crazy. I mean, coming from Bloemfontein, I couldn't even speak English properly. Even now, I battle with the English language, but I couldn't really defend myself or speak English properly, or it was just such a vast difference. And remember, I was only 17 when we went over in March. I only turned 18 that May. I went to school a year too early, so I was still very young.
Yeah, that's a big thing that a lot of people don't remember, that you really broke out into the world scene when you were very young. Did you find that you were always racing against competitors who were much older than you?
Yes, definitely. Most of the competitors were much older. I think at that time they didn't have a did they have a World Junior Championships? I'm not sure if they had
No, I don't
that
think they
going at
did.
that
I don't think they did back then. No.
time. So I was more or less racing against seniors all the time.
So when you were competing against them, were you kind of, motivated in yourself because you're thinking, well, hang on, I'm this old and these girls are running this speed. I know that I can do better than that. Was that part of the mindset?
No, I was scared. I was really scared.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah, it was sometimes it's competition. I mean, the competition was really tough. So it was tough racing especially during those times. Remember the Russians and the East Europeans, and it was tough competition to run against. Yeah.
And coming out of South Africa, you had no exposure to that international competition before, so it was really your first look at the global scene of running. And what were your first impressions of the East Europeans?
Um, I think the Eastern Europeans and the Russians are they're very and physically they're very intimidating as well because the way they run from a strength background, so it's very intimidating racing against them. And for with them, it's all about speed, and it was all about speed and power.
Now, as your racing evolution continued in competitions, did your race strategies change, particularly over the 3,000 meters? Were there changes in your strategy on how you used to race those races?
Not really. I mean, I used to run like as hard as I could for as long as I could, and that probably that's probably the best way for me to run because I don't have that explosive speed of running a sub 30-second last 200. Um, so I really had to work hard the whole time and try and run the speed or them out of endurance. So that was my strategy. Yeah.
Were you a preferred front runner? Did you like running in the front?
More or less, yes. I usually, especially if you race barefoot on the track, it's probably best to either be either on the outside or at the back or in the front because otherwise you get spiked all the time. So, as a barefoot runner, it's probably best to go to the front.
You must have got spiked a lot throughout your career. Was that something that caused major injuries at times?
No, never. I mean, it was a small injuries, like small cuts and bruises and stuff like that, but nothing serious. No, no.
Now, you represented two countries in two different Olympic Games. Not many people can say they've done that. How was that feeling, actually representing two countries? Was there a bit of a diversification in your mind as far as that goes, or did you always feel South African?
I always felt South African. and that's why I wanted to run the 92 Olympic Games. I shouldn't have raced it because I was really ill. I had tick bite fever and I shouldn't have competed. But um, I just wanted to experience a real Olympics and not the one that I experienced in '84.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And was the Barcelona Olympics, was it like closing a chapter in the book for you, going there and doing that?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that was definitely a closing chapter in the book for me because I knew my running days were running out, and then after I mean, to be honest, after I came back from England and returned to South Africa in 1989, it sort of I sort of lost some of that fierceness, and that drive. It wasn't over for me. It was almost at a level of being dangerous and self-hurting and compulsive,
Mm.
and when I went back to South Africa, I sort of lost that because I got back into a normal life again, and I met my husband, and I had other interests, and life happened, which I'm really thankful for because being a top athlete and what I did to my body and training wise and being always being so competitive, it's not a good environment. It's probably not it's not something that I would recommend for anyone because you only see the glamour of the Olympics, but you don't look at everybody that didn't win a gold medal. And there's so many, even now, there's so many new research coming out of athletes having PTSD, emotional trauma, um, emotional abuse, all of that happen in the process because athletes are so driven um, to perform that they will do anything to get there in a way. And you will endure anything to get to that place.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I look back on your career and you really hit the limelight at such a young age, and we see it today where it just seems as athletes are getting younger and younger across all sports, and there just seems to be something in my mind that's wrong with that because there's that case of maturity that one needs in life to not only perform at their best, I think, but also to be able to emotionally intelligence deal with it. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with it. That's why it's so important to have someone in your life that's not there for your running or your performance, someone that really cares about you to take care of you and tell you this is enough. Because even now, when I start running and training, I've no insight in my own running. I'll just run as hard as I can for as long as I can and see what happens. So, but you need someone out there to say, no, stop, you're hurting yourself. This is not good for you. Get out of this drug. You don't need this in your life. You are so much more than just running. And that's what I've tried to teach the athletes that I've coached is you don't need running in your life to feel good about yourself. You're a you're okay without running. Running is just complementary. You're a great person without running. You don't need running to feel good about yourself. Don't attach your sense of self to your running performance because I think that's the most dangerous thing that happens to athletes. Um, is when you attach your sense of self-worth to your running performance.
I'm so glad to hear you talking about what you're doing today with those young athletes, and I'd like to touch on that a little bit more later on because I think it's such an important part of athletes who have been there and done it like you have and now are prepared to give back and make a difference in the lives of others. And it doesn't matter whether they're athletes or not. You can help young people, I guess, see the light in different ways. But I want to go back to the time when you went back to South Africa after being in the UK, and I guess starting life in a different dimension, wasn't it? You, as you say, you had new things coming into your life. Was it a happy time of your life when you went back there?
Yes, definitely. I got married in 1989 to my husband. It was also sad because that same year my father was murdered. So it was a very, but luckily I had my husband and um, it, it it was a tough time in that sense. But other than that, I found my feet again because I made friends. It was very alone in England. I didn't have any like close friends, but back in
Hmm.
South Africa, I had friends again and I had a life to go back to and I started studying again. Um, so I just got into the normal rhythm of normal life, and running was something I did because I wanted to, not because I had to.
So in the UK, would you say that you were addicted to running alone? That was what it was all about, just running. That was life for you in the UK.
Yeah, definitely that. And I had to run to perform as well. It wasn't. it was changed from process driven to outcome based. Everything was outcome based. You do this session, you do this to get here, and if you don't win this race, you're not going to be invited to the next one. And um, whereas previously it was all I was happy in my environment and I could perform. So it changed a lot. There's a huge difference, and there's a lot of research done about people first have to be happy in their environment to perform and to be really good at something they do, even work, anything. You don't perform and then feel happy. You have to be happy first and then perform.
You went through that, I guess, period of time where you were involved in a great political divide in your own country. You went to another country and you survived through that. What about equality in sport at the time? How did you find it between men and women when you were in the UK when it came to sports and sports coverage and just the way that women were treated in sport versus men?
I think in that time, British athletics was separated. So you had the women's association and the men's association. Of course, men got more money. And you remember that was a golden era of Coe and Ovett, and then Cram came later. So there was a lot of money in men's athletics, not a lot of in women. So in a way, I think I was the first, one of the first distance female athletes that really put women in the spotlight at that time. Not necessarily because of my running prowess, but more because of the politics and the all of that. Yeah, so there was definitely no equality. Definitely not. No.
Well, you're being very humble there because you're, world record holder, Olympic representative, and all the rest of it. I think you should be a little bit nicer on yourself as far as your achievements in the career. But was there a discussion amongst the women at the time in the sport about, furthering your, I guess, presence in the sport? Was it something that you used to talk about with your competitors or not really?
No, never. No, that was never mentioned. No, no. I think later in the because 1984 was the first time they actually had the marathon for women and the 3K, and then I'm not exactly sure when was the first time they had the 10K and 5K, but the female athletes literally had to take the IOC to court. It wasn't, it was settled out of court, but eventually they allowed females to run 5K and 10K as well. So I think 92 was the first time they had the 10K.
Right, okay. Now, you've competed in Olympic Games, World Cross Country Championships, and a lot of other major events across the world. Has there been a place where you've been to race and compete where you really felt at peace with yourself? Was there a particular stadium or a particular venue that made you feel really, really cool?
Well, there were a few races like that, but I think the first one was probably the one that stands out to me most was in 1993 when I came fourth in the World Cross Country Championships in Balboa, and especially after 92, after having such a bad Olympic year, I could come back and then come in fourth at the World Cross Country Championship. I think that was something special. Everything was just magical about being there.
It's so nice to hear about somebody who got fourth in an event actually being happy about it. Most people are never happy about coming fourth, are they?
No, not really. Excuse me for a moment.
Sure.
Excuse me. Not happy. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most No, most people aren't happy if they're coming fourth, but for me, it was wonderful to be just to reset myself after having such a bad year in 92 and coming in fourth at the World Cross Country Championship. So that was probably one of my best races ever.
So I'm speaking from a naive position here, but I would imagine it would have been much nicer for you to run as a cross-country runner on soft grass than it would have been on a hard track. Is that right?
Definitely, yes, definitely, yeah. It's I don't know, cross country. I never liked cross country. I remember I always tell the story. My first cross country season, by the time I'd finished in the 4K race, the goal would win would already be in a tracksuit and cooling down. By the time I get to the finish, I just hated cross country so much, and it took me about a year to get into it, and then I started running better, but I love the freedom of the cross country training and racing, but I love the preciseness of track running.
So did you do a lot of your training across trails, or did you do most of your training on the track?
Most of my training was on grass. Yeah, we
Right.
just on high school. We ran at the local park on the grass, or there was a grass track at the university where we can go, or the military base. So mostly on grass, yes.
Now, it seems inevitable that middle distance runners usually step up at some stage of their life and take on the marathon. When did the marathon first come into your world?
I've wanted to do the marathon for a long time when I was still younger and competitive, but I suffer from really low blood sugar or insulin intolerance. So I really battle with the longer runs. I would get really like feel sick, and I didn't really enjoy the longer runs. Um, so eventually, I was brave enough to do my first marathon was New York. That was in 2012. No, that was actually my third marathon. But I started marathon running. But my first marathon in London, I had to stop because of that. And then my second marathon in Bloemfontein, I was just a local marathon. I didn't even train for it. I just went out. But my friend biked with me the whole way. He biked with me the whole way and made sure that I get enough nutrition. And so I realized if I have the right nutrition, I can actually run a marathon. But that was like at the end of my career. And then, of course, the big C, the Comrades and Two Ocean. In South Africa, you're not considered an athlete unless you've run the Comrades. um,
That's so true. I've got rugby friends in South Africa, and before we get halfway
yeah,
through a rugby conversation, they start talking about the Comrades, and say, "Well, you've got to do that.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
thing that's really important."
yes,
But
yeah.
let's talk about the nutrition side of it, because it's interesting when you talk about a distance runner as you were stepping up to the marathon. You'd never had to deal with nutrition on a run that long before. So
No, no.
was it a trial and error? Did you just try different things to see what worked for you?
I tried different things that worked for me. In London, I didn't have my own drink, so wasn't prepared. I just drank whatever they had, and it was just too sweet. So my blood sugar just dropped. But after that, I made sure that I have the right stuff, and then eventually I got onto this one product that really helped me. And the first time I finished um, an ultra, and not going through the blues, what I call it, where you really feel bad. It was just amazing because I just felt stronger and stronger in the finish. And usually it's just the other way around. I just keep on waiting for that
Yeah.
drop to happen, and it didn't happen. That was amazing.
Oh, that's brilliant. I do want to talk about New York, though, because it's a special marathon, of course, and you came in
Yes,
under the
yeah,
finish banner in 2 hours, 59 minutes and 53 seconds,
yes,
which
yeah.
is,
I
which
just
is,
made under three.
but what a feeling that must have been, just getting through Central Park there and breaking 3 hours. Were you absolutely wrapped with your performance there?
No, I was dying. That last 8K, the guy was helping me. He was helping me through. I told him just go on, don't run with me because because I was that last 8K was terrible. But so I couldn't really appreciate the park or anything. I was just praying to get to the finish. But I must say the support you get running in the New York Marathon is amazing,
Mm.
especially if they realize you're from South Africa. There's so many South Africans in there, and then spectators and cheering you on. It's amazing.
Have you ever run the Paris Marathon?
No, no. The only big marathons I attempted was London and then New York, and the others were more smaller marathons.
Okay, well, I strongly recommend you put on your shoes one day and go and do Paris, because I've run a number of marathons around the world, and Paris is by far the best atmosphere that you can experience in a marathon. It really is extraordinary, and running through Paris City is just an amazing thing. So there's a challenge I give you today. Go and run the Paris Marathon sometime.
Okay, all right.
So, lots of things happen throughout your career, and we live in an age today where there's a lot of sports science, there's a lot of sports psychology, and all those sorts of things. From listening to you so far, a lot of your training and a lot of your programming was basically on how you felt, and you just went and did it, and you run as hard as you could. Do you think having all those other disciplines that exist today in the support mechanisms for athletes, do you think that would have made you a faster, better athlete in the time?
My philosophy in life is keep everything as simple as possible because then less can go wrong. I think if I had better advice regarding my nutrition, it would have definitely helped because I sometimes experience the low blood sugar levels during other races as well. So that would definitely have helped. And then recovery. That was always a big thing because um, nowadays they have so many extra things they use for recovery that we didn't have, which I think would have definitely helped a lot.
What are your thoughts around the new shoe technology? And here's someone that ran bare feet. So what are you thinking of all the? Well, there's a bit of controversy around as well, right? We've seen a lot of world records this year from athletes that are wearing these new shoes. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I don't know. If research shows that it gives you that big an advantage, you have to believe research, and because IAAF came out and brought out some rules against some of the measures, definitely. But at the end of the day, you have to get to that level to use the shoes to become that good, and you don't get to that level by wearing great shoes. You get to the level by going out and doing your due diligence every day.
What do you think though when it comes to breaking world records? Because that's kind of the mantra within the sport, isn't it? Is breaking world records, and if a shoe's helping you run, half a second faster per kilometre, is it something that we shouldn't classify as performance enhancing in some ways, or?
That's a tough question. I don't think I'm equipped really to answer that. I know, like I've said, the IAAF brought out rules against the new shoes and what advantage they have, and also that the shoes have to be available to everyone and not just elite athletes. So in that way, it leveled the playing field in a sense. Um, and the other effect we also have to remember is the placebo effect. If you have everybody raving about these shoes, so if you put them on, you're gonna feel like, oh, I'm so much faster. um,
Yeah, yeah.
as well. Yeah, but I don't think it would have made a difference to my running. I don't think so. No.
There you go again. Um, let's look at some of the performances, and there's one that stands out for me so far in the last few years, and that's Kipchoge's under sub 2 hour marathon time that he ran in
Yeah.
Vienna. An athlete of your ability, looking at that kind of performance, what do you think about that kind of performance?
I think it's mind-boggling because I remember two great athletes in South Africa, Tamani and Yava, Matthews Tamani and Zolile Yava, battling out, almost running sub 1 hour for the half marathon and running the world record then, the unofficial world record, because that was during the apartheid era. And how hard it was. And I mean, I know how hard they trained and what level they were doing it. So um, for someone to come out and do two of them back to back, it's just amazing. In a way, it's a bit incomprehensible, but it's astonishing.
So, do you think the sky's the limit as far as these world records go? Do you think they're just going to all keep going down, or do you think that we're going to find a limit to what the human body is capable of doing?
I don't think there's a limit to a human body. I don't think so. I think if you look at marathon running and um, if you look at something like comrades, we're not supposed to be able to run that far. I mean, physically, you're just not. But people do that because they will themselves to do that. They can't walk for the next week, but that's okay. but so I don't really think there's any limits. No, no.
Let's talk about comrades, because it's the 89 kilometres of hell from Pietermaritzburg down to Durban, and you've done it how many times now?
I've done it twice. Yes.
Twice,
Yeah.
okay. So tell us about the first experience. What was it like for you?
Oh my word. The first experience was terrible because I felt okay, but then I lost my mind and going through halfway because halfway was like 45, 44 Ks. And I thought to myself, I still have more than a marathon left to the finish. And you're already so tired. And that's when I realized it's just mental toughness. Because Bruce Fordyce, the 9 times winner, he came past me with 60 Ks with like still like 28 Ks to go. And I decided, okay, I'm going to try and run with him because he was battling as well. So we helped each other to finish, which was a really amazing experience to be able to finish with him. So my first comrades was really very tough. Yeah.
So are you going to go back again?
I went back again and I ran 6:55. I
Wow.
actually came seventh 2 years later, but I think I was just better prepared. But again, the same thing happened at 70Ks because you're almost there, but you're not there. And you're so tired. And I remember there's a friend of mine standing next to the road, and he said, I was walking. I was like just walking and eating and drinking everything I could find along
Yeah.
the road. And my friend was standing there, and he said, Zola, you've been through much worse than that. And I thought to myself, you've given birth to twins. You can do this.
What a great inspirational, yeah. You can,
So I started running again, and I started running again, and just that switch in your mind, it's all a mind thing. It just changed my mind, and I actually ran really well the last few Ks and finished in seventh position, which was totally surprising.
yeah,
But I think uh,
fantastic. Have you got a
so.
T-shirt now that says "I've given birth to twins"?
No, my body shows it because I have this permanent like little tube around my stomach.
Let's talk quickly about what you're doing today, because I think it's fantastic when athletes do things to give back and make a difference in other people's lives, and in particular the young people. Can you just give us some insight to what you're currently doing in the world of athletics?
I was coaching at the local university for 5 years, and then I resigned, and now I'm coaching at a local high school. Um, I'm still involved in running and helping other athletes and being involved in running in that way.
Yeah,
And
brilliant.
I'm still running myself every day, so just to keep sane.
So if there's people out there listening and watching today, which there is going to be many people doing that, what kind of message would you send them about, if they're starting off, particularly young people, if they're starting off on a running journey and they see themselves one day perhaps at the Olympic Games? What kind of advice would you pass on to them?
I think for me, it's all about motivation and why you're doing it. Like Nitschke said, if you know why, you can do anything. So, um, and I always tell this story, and I use analogies a lot because I love analogies of a tree. Um, it's with boldness that you say, I want to do something, and with some arrogance that you say, I want to run a marathon or I want to be an athlete. And you need that. But as soon as you get to the starting line, that boldness and arrogance are not going to help you anymore. And that's where the roots of the trees come in, that silence and growing within yourself and just having that one little voice inside yourself that's going to carry you through really tough times, whether it is in your race, in life, anything. That it's that little something, and it's different for everybody. But I think if people can understand that difference in motivation between the arrogance and the silence and the deep motivation, that's going to get you through difficult times. That's what's going to get you through, not the noisy arrogance of, yeah, let's do this.
Are you somebody that meditates?
No, not really, but I read a lot, and and my running is my meditation. I like being outside, just sitting outside, quiet and being outside. So, yeah, for me, being solitary is really important, and I just enjoy doing that.
So when you run a marathon, what do you think about? What's in your mind?
It depends. It goes through various phases. So it's a very emotional ride, a marathon. It's up and down. One moment you feel good, the next moment you feel bad. But there's always that one little thing that's going to carry you through. And it's different in every race and for every person and every moment. I can't really say what it is. I can't put my finger on it. It's just the way you experience space time in that during that time. And that's why I say you have to be in a way have some roots. So it's something deep. It's not something that you can actually pinpoint and say this is it.
I think the great Finnish athlete Zatopek once said, if you want to run, go run a mile. If you want to experience a lifetime, go run a marathon.
Yeah, that's so apt. Yes. Really,
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
think you when you run a marathon, you go into areas where you've never been before. Definitely, emotionally, physically, psychologically, everything. Yeah.
Outside of running, do you watch or take notice of many sports, other sports today?
No, I don't really like sport. My favorite, I don't really like watching sport. I watch some golf with my husband. I like that because you can fall asleep and while watching.
You
It's
can
very
fall
soothing.
asleep.
I'm really not a good sports person. So whenever the tennis, the slams come around, I'll watch that.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
a keen athletics follower. I don't really like watching athletics and running. I like doing it myself.
yeah.
So yeah, I'd rather spend my time doing other stuff than watching sport. I think I do enough sport and I've experienced enough sport in my life. Um, so I need to spend some time on doing other things.
And what are some of the hobbies outside of sport that you really enjoy doing, other than reading?
Yeah, my favorite hobby is reading. I actually sleep with my books, so they're on my bed. Um, it's reading and animals. I love animals. So
Yeah.
we have 6 dogs
Wow.
and I have some chickens and some ducks. So I enjoy being out in nature. So I love to do some bird watching and so yeah, very into insects and spiders and try and take pictures of them. So it's a very simple life,
Yeah.
very simple.
Beautiful. I can't let you go today without you giving us your favourite book recommendation, because I'm sure everybody's interested now to know what you like to read and what's your favourite book out there at the moment.
Oh, ah, that's a tough one because I normally read like 4 or 5 books at one
At a
time.
time, okay.
Um, Yeah, so I read different genres, but so history is one of my favorites, and I think The Silk Road is probably one of the best history books that I've ever read. The Silk Road. It puts history in a whole new perspective, definitely.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, listen, it's been fantastic having a chat to you today. Our time's gone really, really fast. I could chat to you for another hour very easily. That's for sure. What's on the bucket list? What are we going to see Zola doing in the next few years? Have you got some other marathons that you want to tick off?
I don't know. I haven't planned anything. I think my running is going through sort of a siesta at the moment. I still run every day, but I've almost lost that competitive thing that I really want to go out there and prove anything in a race. So I'm waiting for that to get back again. And hopefully we'll get back soon. I think emotionally the last few years was really tough after my brother passed away,
Yeah,
and it's just been one of those things that I don't know. You lose some I lost something, and it's tough to get that back, and I think it's reflected in my running as well.
the same time that heals all wounds. So I guess that's something else that could be applicable in this case as well, huh?
Yeah, definitely, but it's taking its time.
Right. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to be looking at all the Paris Marathon results going forward to see if I see your
Okay.
name registered
All
there
right.
for Paris. So I'm going to keep an eye out for you. But
Okay. I'll look at the comrades. I'll look at the comrades results.
yeah, you do that. Yeah, I've got it on my
Okay.
bucket list. Zola, thanks so much for joining us on the Global Sports Channel today. It's been lovely having a chat with you, and I wish you all the very best for the future. And thank you for sharing us everything about your past and for not talking about the 1984 Olympic Games.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a
Have a
good
good
night. Thank
evening.
you.
There we are, the incredibly humble Zola Bud Peterson talking to me from beautiful South Carolina in the United States, where she lives at the moment. And what a wonderful lady. And she really has gone through a very difficult life, losing some family members who have been very, very close to her in her family, as well as some of the tough things she went through as an athlete, and we gave you a little bit of an insight there. I hope you enjoyed this particular episode on the Global Sports Channel. If you haven't checked us out yet, head over to globalsportschannel.com. You'll find all of our other interviews there, as well as product reviews and virtual Q&A sessions. Zola's going to come back and be a member of our Q&A squad, so if you want to get online early in 2021 and ask Zola some questions about her career or her training, anything you want to know from her that perhaps I didn't ask today, then look out for the dates on when Zola's going to come back and do that. Don't forget to check us out on social media and connect with us there on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And here on YouTube, yes, just subscribe to our channel and hit the little bell notification, because every time we drop a video, you will then be notified that the Global Sports Channel has loaded some more content. Well, that's it for this time. My name is Mark Philpott. I'll be back with you all again very soon here on the Global Sports Channel with another episode. Until then, I wish you a very happy, safe and fantastic week ahead. Bye for now.